that toxic relationship. Quit that soul-sucking job. Stop doing those things that are bad for you. I'm sure you've heard iterations of this throughout the self-help world, and it's not bad advice. I just find that for myself, it's a lot less about getting the courage to leave a bad situation as it is being in a really good situation or situation that was once good and finding that it no longer feels true to who I am. And in a way, it's a lot harder because on the surface, nothing's changed with the person or the job itself, or the reasons that I went into the commitment are still valid. It just no longer fits who I've become as I evolve. And I think this can be true of a lot of things in this midlife season. It's not that the things that we're involved with, whether it be relationship or career or friends or whatever the case may be, it's just that as we change, it no longer fits. And so this has shown up for me in a lot of different ways, and I've been reflecting on it because it's happening lately. I'll share one example from the work sphere of how this can be the case. And what happened was I was in the Foreign Service, and before getting that job, I had first applied for, or really taken the Foreign Service exam back in college. And I took it a second time in graduate school, and then I took it a third time a few years later. So this was like very long in the making. And the third time I finally passed the exam, both the written and the oral, and I jumped through all the hoops you need to do. However, I was placed on a wait list that you can be on only for 18 months. And if you don't get called in before the 18 months is over, then your name is taken off the list and you have to start over completely from scratch with the process. And so after month 17, I had pretty much decided, okay, this just isn't meant to be. But I got a call a couple days later asking if I wanted to enter the next orientation class. And I had just taken a new job in Thailand. And so it was a real dilemma as to what to do. But I just felt in my heart, like if I don't do this, I will always regret it. And so I quit the new job. I went back for the orientation in Washington, D.C. And I ended up going on my first post to a place I really didn't want to go, on the border of Mexico. But I made the most of it. And then for my second post, I got to go to Vietnam as an economic officer and consular officer for the first year. And it was amazing. I mean, it was truly my dream job. It was what I had studied in college, international relations and graduate school to be able to do. And, you know, you live in the most incredible housing and you get to meet such fascinating people and travel and get to make foreign policy and really have ripple of influence within the government. And so it was really a great job. And being in Vietnam, it was even better. I mean, it was just such a great setup, and I got to meet government officials and business people and tour factories and travel all over the country, meeting all sorts of individuals and students. And I got to interview thousands of visa applicants, and it was wonderful. And at one point, I went to Bali and I met this guy, Brian Johnson, who you may know from Philosopher's Notes. And he was so inspiring. Like as soon as I saw him, I saw he was glowing. And I was just sort of intrigued, like what, I'll have what he's having kind of a thing. And so I got to hear his talk. And then he shared this story of how he was at a time of feeling in a really dark place, and there was nothing he wanted to do. He was quite depressed, and the only thing he had a yes to was to coach a minor league baseball team, like a kids baseball team. And So he ended up doing that, and it wasn't related. He quit law school. He basically quit after his first year of law school, which everyone thought he was crazy for, and went back home and was living at home. And so people thought, what is he doing? He's throwing his life away. Like he quit law school and now he's just coaching this little league team. But through that, he started realizing, as he was coaching the team, he realized that there wasn't anything central that was coordinating the schedules for the teams and ways of them meeting up. And so he started to do that, and he started to do it online. And he eventually created this program that eventually was bought out by like Google, or this was back in the early 2000s. So I don't remember exactly who bought it out, but it was big, and he made a lot of money from the deal. And then he was able to reinvest it and start doing other things with the money, and then eventually get to the point where he was living his dream. And so just by his saying yes to this thing that made sense to absolutely no one else, he was able to just launch into the life that was much truer to him. And around this time, I had been really listening to a lot of coaching. I had been doing a lot of self-development programs. I've been studying a lot of healing modalities. And as much as I really liked the Foreign Service, I realized that there was something in it that just no longer felt true to me anymore, to the path of development that I was on. And there was something about meeting Brian Johnson and hearing his story that just like triggered something in me. And at the same time, I began meditating regularly. So that was another aspect. And as I was meditating and as I was spending more time with myself, I started to realize more and more that the Foreign Service was no longer what I was wanting. And when I looked ahead as to what I would be doing 5 years in the future, 10 years in the future, I just couldn't feel really excited about it. Whereas when I imagined myself doing travel documentaries or having a healing practice or coaching, like I got really lit up by that. And so I made this extremely hard decision to quit the Foreign Service after 5 years. And everyone thought I was nuts. You're gonna quit to do what? And nobody got it. And I remember the day I went in and told my boss that I was leaving. He looked at me like he'd seen a ghost or something, like, are you crazy? Nobody quits this career. Because it was really a career. It wasn't just a job. And I get it. From, on the surface and for what I did for those years, I mean, it was absolutely perfect and I loved it. But I really realized that it was no longer the truest version of myself anymore, and that it was worth risking in order to discover what that truer version was. And fortunately, I had the savings to be able to have a little bit of a safety net to do that. So this is coming up again now in my life, is that I'm at a real crossroads as I'm at the completion of an 8-year beautiful relationship, which I left for similar reasons, not because anything was bad. In fact, it was beautiful in so many ways, but it was just like we'd outgrown each other. And then I'm also just on a micro level, as I'm looking at what comes next to me in terms of housing and where I'm going to go at the end of the month. There's been a couple of house sits that have been amazing houses, and the timing has aligned perfectly. But there's just something in me that is saying, this isn't quite it. And I've said no. And on paper, it makes no sense. But I'm just learning to trust this part of me that is just trying to trust what feels true, that still small voice within. And I'm sure I'm not always getting it right, but it's really less about getting it right, I think, as it is just the intention to be true to myself. And I really feel like being in truth is what brings aliveness. Of course, there can be a grief with coming into truth because of what is being let go of. And that's something I've definitely been experiencing a lot lately. But I think also in the grief, there can be some relief. And in that relief brings the space for more aliveness. And so I'm really looking at how I can bring more aliveness into my world, into my life. And this is part of an unfolding journey, which I hope to share more of on YouTube. And I hope that others can relate and can, just discover more of their own truth for themselves as well. So I would love to hear your story. I'd love to hear if your changes in life have been more from leaving something bad or from outgrowing something that was really good at one time and then just no longer is. I look forward to hearing from you, and I'll see you on the next one.